This is Supply Chain Now Radio, sponsored by APICS Atlanta and Talent Stream, broadcasting from #Supply Chain City, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain, the people, the companies, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. APICS has a rich tradition of student team supply chain case competitions. The program began as a grassroots event with many APICS chapters, colleges, and universities taking part. Over the years, the APICS Case Competition has evolved into a flagship event touching students at universities across North America, as well as Africa, Asia, Europe, and South America. Since 2017, the annual APICS Case Competition has been provided in collaboration with Deloitte Consulting. The competition provides student teams with an opportunity to enhance and test their supply chain knowledge by working on end-to-end supply chain challenges drawn from company experiences. And it's more than experience and recognition for the students. There's a $5,000 total prize money pool for the first, second, and third place student winners in the final round, and $2,500 for the department or the school of the final round first, second, and third place winners. First place for the 2018 competition went to my alma mater, Bradley University, where 4 bright students collaborated to top other exceptional schools, including my local favorite, Georgia Tech, and one of the premier engineering, science, and mathematics colleges in the U.S., Harvey Mudd. In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, I sat down with Deloitte Consulting to learn why they are involved with the competition, and the 4 Bradley students to learn more about their experiences.
Today I have the pleasure to speak with the sponsor of the 2018 APICS Supply Chain Case Competition, Deloitte Consulting. With me today is Ken Olson, Managing Director out of the Chicago office. Thanks for investing a few minutes with me, Ken, and thanks to Deloitte for making the investment in this case competition. Can you tell me a little bit about the cases and maybe the groups that participated?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So first, thanks for the opportunity to discuss the APICS Case Competition in collaboration with Deloitte. I did want to start off by congratulating the teams that placed in the top 3 this year. So Bradley University was first place, Georgia Tech second, and Harvey Mudd third. But also thanks to all the teams that participated. We saw a lot of good supply chain talent in the competition this year, so we're very excited about being part of that competition with APICS. The cases that we bring together are put together for the case competition are real-life examples that we have from our experiences. We think it's a great opportunity to bring these cases to students, to have them apply what they've learned or their experiences to solve them. And as we develop the cases, we look to have a broad perspective or broad opportunities across the supply chain, because as the students go through the case competition, they can get up to 3 different cases. So we look to have them understand as different points, potentially cases around opportunities for network optimization or manufacturing strategy, or even into M&A situations and how supply chain can help drive synergies. So these are real-life case examples we bring to the students and have them look to figure out how they can solve them.
Without giving away too much, because I know the 2019 case competitions are about to kick off, what are some of the things that you look for? How do you analyze the cases?
I think we look for a couple pieces as we analyze the cases, right? So one, as the students go through it, we want to understand their thought process, like how they're looking to attack and solve the problem, so kind of their approach to it. Then we also look into, I'll say, the analytics and some of the math, if you will, in terms of how they solved it. Are they looking at the right pieces in order to solve that and really come up with the answer to the question that's asked for it? And then the final part, too, we also look in terms of how they present it. You know, I think a big piece is how you take your findings, are able to summarize it and present it and really get that clear picture of what the proposed approach is going forward. So I think across those 3 things are areas that we look for the students.
And Ken, why does Deloitte sponsor this event?
We actually think it's a great opportunity to help develop our future supply chain leaders and actually even generate more interest in supply chain. Getting real life experiences helps people develop, but also really get excited about what it lies out there for them in the real world as they get their job. And we felt to work with APICS, great organization, does a lot to help develop practitioners, great way to work with them and really develop that next generation of supply chain leaders.
What's your role at Deloitte?
So at Deloitte, I work within our supply chain practice, supply chain network optimization practice, and I lead supply chain planning globally. So as I work across our different regions and member firms in terms of how we want to bring leading supply chain planning capabilities to the marketplace.
Ken, as we wrap up, any last words from you, from your perspective in being involved?
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd say, we are very excited about the opportunity be part of the case competition last year with APICS. I think it was a great success. I think we had over 200 teams from 9 countries participate, but a lot of great feedback, a lot of from the students, a lot of great interest, and I think that resonated just in terms of what students have shared and communicated to others, because as this next year's competition kicks off, I think we've doubled that. I think we're in over 400 teams and over 20 countries for this next year. So I think it's a great competition that a lot of people are excited to be part of and really, get that additional experience or insights into supply chain. So we're very excited to continue into the next year with APICS.
Ken, thanks again for speaking with me and supporting the future of supply chain management.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate the time.
I have the pleasure to speak with a team of students from Bradley University who won the 2018 APICS Supply Chain Case Competition. With me today is Matthew Kern, a BSIE with the Supply Chain Management concentration, graduating May 2019. Logan Welling, BSIE, May 2019 with a minor in Quality Engineering and Business. Heather Hawkins, another BSIE, graduating in May 2019. And Mark Hernandez, the one-off with a marketing degree with a supply chain concentration. He graduated in May 2018. First, guys, congratulations on your team accomplishments.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thanks. Has your team received much fanfare and recognition since winning?
I would say yes. A lot of organizations and businesses out there have recognized us as winners, as well as the university at large. I've seen several articles on us from Bradley and from other third-party organizations talking about the competition and then talking about us as winners. Yeah, our parent chapter even went out and got us a plaque for our recognition, and a lot of the department heads and deans are looking to even further endorse us in online articles, as well as the local scout.
Who is your academic advisor?
Our academic advisor is Dr. John Yu. He's an industrial engineering professor here at Bradley.
He necessarily didn't turn us on to this event, but he actually was our sole supporter there from the university, and actually drove up and bought a ticket to the conference to watch us compete in the early round of the final competition, as well as stayed for the last day where we got announced as a winner. So that was awesome to have a little cheering section going on. Getting involved was kind of our parent chapter that pushed us to really get involved in that.
Are you guys involved with your local APICS chapter?
So we have our chapter on campus, so we have a separate Bradley University student chapter, and over the past year or so, we've really seen that organization flourish. We've only been on campus for around 6 years, and I've only been here 3, and we're having events on a regular basis now, so we bring in the parent chapter members to come speak at our events, as well as we go to a few of their meetings a year, just kind of give them updates on where we're at.
Well, I know as a local chapter leader in Atlanta, it's very helpful to have students involved, either as volunteers. And the other good thing is the student membership is free. I think hopefully you guys have taken advantage of that.
Absolutely. I think that's one of our biggest selling points, and kind of turning students on to the real world and the post-grad benefits of what a membership in APICS has.
So tell me a little bit about the case or the assignment that you guys were given. Maybe you can tell me what it was, and maybe the challenges that you faced coming up with ideas.
We actually ended up doing 3 cases from the beginning. The first was coming in to trying to qualify for the regional round. Then we had a second one at regionals, which was ours was kind of like the Midwest region, as well as the final round at the international competition at the APICS National Conference in Chicago. And the last case, which I'll kind of describe briefly, was just a handbags accessories company located in London, England, and it was merging or acquiring another company in New York. And they both had large markets in both Europe as well as the U.S., and we were given supplier information, so all of the supplier data with cost and how much they were buying for both the 2 companies, transportation logistics information, as well as operations and warehouse. And we each, I guess the first kind of big challenge that we had was figuring out what does each person have to do. We're only given, it was around 6 hours to completely decide what we want to do as well as create the presentation to present to Deloitte. And the biggest challenge was who's going to do what. And I think we kind of found we each specialized in our own areas. I ended up doing a lot with the supplier side. Logan took on the logistics and transportation, and Heather took on the warehouses and operations. And then Mark kind of focused more on the market research. You know, what are the cutting edge things that these handbag accessories companies are doing today? Where can we really increase revenue and grow our profits?
Was there any analysis involved? I mean, did you have to use any software? Or is it just really ideas?
The analysis part was pretty much done solely on Excel, and kind of what we found looking back on it now was no one really went through our worksheets, our workbooks, and kind of fact-checked us. But we definitely did focus a lot of our attention on gathering data and deriving these assumptions that would just strengthen our argument. There was a lot of data analysis going on.
So we also used the 3D Maps program on Excel to really draw up our supply chain network, which really helped in our presentation, I think, delivering it to Deloitte. So a lot of it was really making a clean presentation that clearly developed kind of where we saw the company headed and what choices we wanted the company to do for the future.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that set us apart in the feedback that we got from the judges, and were able to implement for the final round of the top 3 teams for the national competition, was that these graphs that we were putting in our presentation originally were too data heavy. And I think that's where some of the other teams were falling victim to as well, was using the information that we had but not compiling it in a visual friendly way.
Something I think I take great pride in, at least, is that we looked at the supply chain and our problem very holistically. So we took each of these different areas where we talked about operations, transportation, and then the inventory of the procurement side. We also looked at like the sustainability of our company moving forward, and like what technologies we can leverage in these areas to reduce our impact on the environment. This is something I think that Mark definitely helped out a lot with, because he has that kind of vision, where some of us, me especially as an engineer, industrial engineer, I'm data driven, I'm just hungry to figure out, get that click moment where all of our numbers add up.
Well, it sounds like you developed some good solutions. I'm just curious, was all that academic based, or do you guys have work experience that you were able to draw upon?
I was going to say personally, a lot of my experience, or at least a lot of my ideas came from my classes in academia, which, you know, I was just talking to my academic advisor earlier today about how interesting it is when you're in class and you're like, oh, am I ever going to apply this? And then here we are, you know, in the real world, able to apply, you know, lessons we learned in class, or, you know, formulas or ideas that were talked about, and now we're actually able to see real change, or at least in this case, what's a mimic of real change.
For me personally, I ended up taking on a lot of the supplier procurement side of things. I've had experience in 2 internships with, one was with Johnson Controls, and I'm still working with Caterpillar right now. So definitely drawn from the experiences I've received there. Maybe not so much in the analysis portion, that's probably more so from the academic side of things, but having that experience really helped when kind of developing the case and really figuring out what decisions should be made. So it's definitely been helpful.
Something I'd like to add, not necessarily based on just academic experience and work experience, but just like learning from our other team members. You know, Logan, Matt, and Mark all bring something different to the table, a different perspective and their different experiences. And being able to work with them throughout this entire year process has really been a journey for me in my own knowledge and understanding of what supply chain is and how it can apply to not only industry, but, you know, everyday life.
Yeah, I noticed it interesting, as I had mentioned in the introduction. 3 of you are industrial engineers, which I think everybody should be industrial engineers. And then the fourth, Mark was marketing. Was that a requirement for the case competition? And then the second question is, do you think that made a difference in your success?
I have a really good story for this one. I remember vividly when we were going through the case. I guess to answer your first question regarding the different majors, there was no requirement, so anyone could have joined the competition. Obviously, to move on throughout the competition, you had to be one of the best teams based off of how they judged us. But when we were creating that final case, and Mark was doing a lot of this market research, and he pulled together a sustainability slide. And I remember vividly both myself and Logan being like, there is no data to this. There's no reason we need this in the presentation because it's not driving a point to our perception at the time. And I remember after Mark ended up being very strong on adding it, so we kind of agreed to it, kept it in the presentation, and we ended up presenting. And I remember a Deloitte person coming up to us and being, she talked about the slide that regarding sustainability. She's like, this made your guys' presentation stand out so much, and none of the other presenters had something like that. So it definitely opened my eyes to, just the diversity that we had on the team and the different experiences that we all brought to the table, and it certainly made us stand out as a team clearly.
I think it just helped us kind of divide and conquer. So I knew that I had kind of Heather and Logan just plugging and chugging away numbers. So that just gave me time to focus on looking at the bigger picture and kind of trying to help us just organize our thoughts. So I think that really helped with just realizing what we all specialize in and where we could help the team the most.
From a learning point, sustainability is obviously a big, not only in the U.S. Economy, but globally. I think even in Europe, it's probably emphasized even more, sustainable supply chains. And you guys, as you get into your careers, you'll probably hear things referenced around the triple bottom line in terms of how corporations are being measured. It's the social impact, the financial impact, as well as the environmental impact. So kudos to you guys for that one. So I expect this process was more about, simply just than winning. I mean, that's what everybody wants to do. We all got to be number one. I assumed you guys learned other things along the way about either yourselves or working as teams.
Yeah, this was a big growing opportunity for me. I'm usually the type that works on my own individually, but when we came together through our first presentation together, there were some button heads. We went through what every team goes to. There was some storming, and then eventually we got together and we got better. And by the time the competition came through, we knew each other's strengths and just what we all have to offer, and we obviously outperformed even our expectations. So it's just you have to build off each other, know each other's strengths. And another big thing I learned is you have to know when to put your foot down and have confrontation with one of your team members.
I think something valuable I really learned from this experience is the importance of presenting. As engineers, like Logan mentioned earlier, we're very much data-driven and very heavy into the analytics. But at the end of the day, when you're, presenting to your manager, your, department chair, whoever it may be who's higher up than you, and they might not have that expertise that you have, you need to be able to convey that information in a sensible, clear, concise way so that those people understand what you're trying to tell them, where the future of the company is going or what decision is best for their future. And I think one of the people that we talk about a lot after the competition was one of the Deloitte employees came up to us and gave us a lot of pointers on our presentation and how it can be better. She said something that really stuck with me is your presentation is really a story, and it tells your journey through the process that you did the analytics, but it's not necessarily going to get down in the trenches. And I think that will probably definitely stick with me throughout my life and my career, and be able to convey those messages to my higher-ups in a much more understandable way.
I completely agree with everything I just said, and the only thing I'd add is kind of to Logan's point as well, just the diversity of experience that we had on our team. I mean, we had a team member who was adopted from China. We have someone who grew up on a farm. I'm a city boy. We've got industrial engineering majors. We've got marketing majors. We've got different concentrations. Some of us have studied abroad. We all just had very different experiences, and coming into the competition, I was worried about how well our team would be able to do. We didn't really know each other that well, and it definitely only added value to what we were able to come up with in our presentation because we all brought different skills to the playing field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd just like to recognize Matt, because you had the vision to kind of pick this team. You were the one that kind of organized it from the start, and you knew what we needed. And I think just having team members from such a diverse background is what helped us, get so far.
Excellent. It sounds like a great opportunity. I mean, especially for your young careers. I know one of you have already started, but a couple others have jobs yet to look forward to. So as we wrap up, any coaching or suggestions for future teams?
It's great that you mentioned that. We actually have another team already starting the next year's competition, and they were like, hey, can we get you guys, separately and, in a meeting and tell us any advice that you might have. And so we're really excited for them. Something that I'd really like to just broadcast to anybody who's interested in this competition is look for any ways, any opportunities for either cost savings or, waste management, anything like that. If you see something that's like, hey, I think that might be a way that we can cut back on costs, or hey, I think there's a way that we can do this better. I think that really is a hallmark, a cornerstone of industrial engineering, being able to find and identify and analyze those key areas where that can be done better.
I was just going to add two things. The first being, make sure any team that's going through the competition, make sure that you clearly identify all the assumptions that you make along the way. They don't give you all the information. You're not going to be able to figure out all the information, so you definitely have to make those assumptions. And we made sure to mark those down as we made each one, but clearly presenting those as well. And then also the emphasis on the presentation. I mean, all the judges get to see is what you present to them, and they don't get to see the 6 hours that you spend data crunching. So making sure whatever your decisions that you make or changes that you want the company to implement are clearly identified and explained in that presentation, whether that be visual or explanatory.
My advice to the next year's team is do something that nobody else is going to do. Just think outside the box, be creative. It may not be a fully baked idea yet, but you just keep working on it, and you maybe work it into your presentation some way, somehow. We did some things like that that really made us stand out. They might have been a reach, but as we got a further understanding, we found a way to put it into our solution, only mention it for a couple seconds, just shows the innovation on our level. Also, you just need to understand that you're presenting to management. Definitely give them a high-level summary as soon as you can. So as soon as you flip that first slide, summarize your solution, and then walk them through the steps on how you got there.
Something that I'd like to add is just on the operations side of the actual event, have a schedule in mind, have a plan going into it. So we kind of broke it down in, first 15 minutes is individual thought gathering time. There's not going to be any conversation. Just kind of go through your own and formulate your own plan. And then we came together and shared our ideas. And then after that, we set our direction and kind of delegated what we were going to do from then on. And then, this is something that we learned going and making it through to the later rounds. Like during the regional round, we set an hour before the presentation was due to switch over and start working on the visual aid and the presentation. We quickly found out that wasn't enough time. After spending 5 or 6 hours of data crunching, we just didn't have enough time to compile it all into the presentation. So the next time around, we set even more time to work on the presentation, which is just kind of what Matt was saying, is that the only thing that they see is that visual aid and that presentation that you put together. So you may have some rock solid evidence, but if you don't give yourself enough time to include it all, then it doesn't matter.
That's impressive. So let's wrap up with maybe just a little infomercial on each one of you guys, if you want. Maybe tell me a little bit about you, maybe a 30-second elevator pitch, and then what's next for you.
My name is Matt Curran. I'm an industrial engineering major with a focus in logistics and supply chain. I'm pretty involved on my campus. I give tours. I work part-time at Caterpillar right now in their procurement division. I am the current vice president of APICS, so I've been heavily involved in the organization since day one, and had the chance to serve as president, secretary, and I really hope to stay involved in APICS, because I really do see the value in the CPIM, the certifications, and just even in the internships I've had, the value that a lot of these larger companies place on those certifications, and just the continued education and the opportunity that APICS provides. Up next for me, I'm actually really excited to say I'm getting ready to accept an offer with Lockheed Martin in their Operations Leadership Development Program. So really looking forward to moving into that come graduation and starting off my career.
Excellent. Congratulations. Logan, what about you?
All right, so I'm a proud farm boy. I grew up on my family's fifth-generation farm. I decided to go to school for engineering. I decided to leave the farm, and I'm going to school for industrial engineering with minors in quality engineering as well as business. In the past, I've worked for the big three in the agriculture world, I guess. One's Caterpillar, one is Case IH, and the other one being John Deere. In the future, I'm looking to go somewhere that pushes me and challenges me, and I'm really interested in what the future holds for the supply chain, so I'm definitely going to stay involved with APICS.
Thank you. And Heather?
Yeah, my name's Heather. I was adopted from China at 15 months old, and so being able to grow up in America, especially in the Midwest, has been a really great experience for me and has given me so much more opportunities than I would have if I had stayed in my home country. Currently, I am an industrial engineer with a double concentration in supply chain and logistics as well as systems engineering. Over the couple summers ago, I worked for Ryerson, a steel manufacturing company. I have also done research with the University of Michigan, specifically operations research in application with healthcare engineering. For the future, just like Logan, I look forward to what the challenges that are going to be presented with me, and I'm hoping to maybe even get a job in supply chain. This experience has really driven me to find my interest and enjoyment of the field, and I hope to be able to continue growing and cultivating that interest.
Great, thanks. And Mark?
Yeah, so I'm Mark Hernandez. I've grown up in the western suburbs of Chicago, and I guess my journey through supply chain started early sophomore year when it was time to designate a concentration. And I was looking at my options, and it was kind of my first introduction to supply chain when that was one of the concentration options, and it just fit perfectly for me, just the way I think and the way I operate. I'm always trying to get better and improve individually as well as holistically. So right now I work for Target in operations management at a distribution center. So I think whatever is next, only God knows. I'm keeping my options open, but I love where I work right now, and I just want to continue getting better in my current role. Where that'll lead me a few years from now, like I said, who knows? Definitely still in supply chain. Something that interests me is how big supply chain is and how many different industries you could work in within supply chain, whether it's planning or distribution where I'm at right now, or sourcing, procurement, anything like that. So possibly a little bit more front-end supply chain in my future. But like I said, where I'm at right now, I'm pretty happy and just enjoying the ride.
Well, excellent. And again, thanks for representing Bradley Braves well. To learn more about the APICS Student Case Competition, check out apics.org Case Competition. Registration is currently open for the 2018-2019 competition, and according to Heather, it sounds like BU has a head start already. To contact any of our guests on today's show, send a note to Chris at supplychainnowradio.com, and we can facilitate an introduction, or I'm sure they wouldn't oppose connecting with you direct on LinkedIn. Be sure to check out past Supply Chain Now Radio show sessions on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or our site at supplychainnowradio.com. This is Chris Barnes, host of Supply Chain Now Radio and proud alum of Bradley University, spotlighting the best in all things supply chain, the people, the companies, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. Thanks for learning.